Have you ever made the bold move to launch a business just 3 weeks before your child is born? And not only survive, but grow to over 4 million in revenue in under 3 years? In this episode of the Growth Minded Marketing Podcast, we sit down with Mason Cosby, the founder of Scrappy ABM. But this isn't just a story about growth, it's a masterclass in focus, protecting your reputation, and having the courage to say no to the wrong opportunities so you can scale the right ones.
We say it all the time, clarity attracts and confusion repels. Mason's journey is a powerful example of what happens when you get laser focused on your ideal client and fiercely protect your brand, even when it costs you in the short term. There's a lot of hype around account-based marketing, but Mason brings it down to earth. He shows how ABM, when done well, isn't just a tactic, it's a strategy that aligns marketing, sales, client experience in a way that fuels real business growth.
Welcome back to the Growth Minded Marketing Podcast, where we simplify marketing so growth-minded CEOs and their teams can scale their businesses with more clarity and fewer headaches. I'm Steve Phipps.
I'm Annie Laurie Walters, and if you're trying to grow your business without losing your mind or your margin, you're in the right place.
Today's conversation is one that I've really been looking forward to. Mason Cosby has built a $4 million agency in under 3 years. And he did it while navigating some of the same pressures and decisions that every CEO listening knows all too well.
And let's not skip this part. He launched Scrappy ABM just 3 weeks before becoming a dad. That's either gutsy, genius, or maybe a little bit of both.
I think it's probably both. Really stood out to me was how intentional Mason has been about who he serves, who he hires, and who he's willing to walk away from. His focus on client fit is something that every CEO, including me, can learn from.
Because let's be honest, we've all taken on clients we shouldn't have. Maybe the scope was fuzzy, maybe the red flags were there, but we needed the revenue. Mason's story reminds us, you don't scale by pleasing everyone. You scale by getting clear.
And Mason doesn't just talk about his wins. He is incredibly transparent about the mistakes he's made, how he has refunded clients their fees, overhiring, and navigating early missteps with IP and contractors. It is a raw and generous and insightful conversation.
Whether you're hiring, refining your ICP, or just trying to stay focused on the long game, you'll walk away with something you can use right away.
Let's dive into my conversation with Mason Cosby. All right, so welcome everybody to the Growth Minded Marketing Podcast. And it's one of my favorite things to do is to talk to business owners and CEOs and hear their growth stories, some of the challenges they've faced as they've been growing and running their companies. Today's guest is a little bit unique. So Mason, who's going to be joining us here in just a moment, Mason is actually somebody that I tried to hire a few years ago. And as my agency was growing and scaling, he and I were both in the story brand world. We were both story brand guides, time, and we had these connections. We actually went to church with his in-laws, even though he and I had never met. There were just these cool, unexpected connection points. And anyway, Mason he pursued a different opportunity and just has been thriving. Introduced Mason here just a minute. I'm going to let him tell the story, but he went on to start a company that is just exploded. And as he and I have stayed in contact and had conversations about various things related to running business and marketing, in some regards, I feel like I'm taking notes when I have conversations with Mason because there's just a lot that I'm learning from him. And so I'm really excited for Mason to share his story. So Mason Cosby, welcome to the story. And why don't you introduce yourself, your company, and tell a little bit about what you do?
Steve, thanks for having me. And it's funny that you shared the story that way because I remember it. I wanted to work for you and timing was off. So I think it's funny that
I think it was a both and. I think it was a both and.
Oh yeah, no, I would have loved to work for you, but I started a company called Scrappy ABM after the other opportunity I pursued was another marketing agency, and I ended up working at a small agency that taught me a lot about account-based marketing, and then ended up getting acquired by the world's most awarded B2B agency as their ABM division. So through that led new business development for North America and had a really cool ride. Long and short, ended up having some kids and realizing I don't know that I want to work at the PE-backed global agency that just long hours. So launched a company because that's obviously what you do through before you have a kid. And it has gone far better than I think anyone would have expected. Lord has been good to us. So I can share a lot of the things that we've done. I think the most important things are the things that we've done poorly and survived those many mistakes. Long and short, in 2.5 years, 4.5 million in sales. So hopefully there are a couple things we can share.
So, Mason, for our listeners who might be unfamiliar with ABM, which is account based marketing, would you give a quick overview as to what ABM is and who it's for? Because you serve a very specific type of business. And if we have folks who are listening that might be a good fit, I would love for them to better understand what you do and eventually how to get in contact with you.
So, account based marketing is really just a B2B revenue strategy that aligns marketing, sales, and customer success around a set of shared target accounts and then added to that definition. And it's not just we all align that these are the companies that we want to go after, but ideally, those companies are based in the data of who your best customers are. So, when I look at it, essentially, once you have gotten to a certain size and scale where you know where your product best fits a specific market, ABM is the very logical next step to take because you are saying, with a deep level of conviction, I know factually that if these companies were to work with our business, their lives would be better. So when I look at it through that lens, that's really who ABM is for. So it's not really for the super early stage startup that's still figuring out product market fit. It is really for those that clearly can define their market and say, these are who we serve exceptionally well and ideally better than anyone else.
Because of the level of detail that you go into with your clients to develop an ICP, who's yours?
The starting point is really that 20 to 25 million is our low end. And then we have found our sweet spot really caps out at like 250 to 300. So we claim our ICP is about 25 to 100 million. They are typically B2B software companies. They have typically between 3 and 8 marketers internally. They already have a sales team that's doing some form of outbound. They are US headquartered. They have an average contract value of at least $50,000, and they're on Salesforce or HubSpot as their CRM. So we go into that level of specificity. When we did that, and we then married that target account criteria up against those that were already in the Scrappy ABM sphere of influence. So I've been fortunate enough to have gained decent sized following on social and through events and an email list. That criteria got us down to about 327, not about, it's 327 accounts that we specifically know these are the best fit customers for us, already are brand aware in some capacity.
I love that level of specificity. When you launched the business, did you start out with level of definition, or what's the journey been like to really get honed in on who your best client is?
Yeah, I ran marketing for marketing agencies. And Steve, been blessed to have many conversations with folks like you. So I thought when I launched Scrappy ABM that we were going to be like the agency for agencies and help run those programs because I know how to do that fairly well. That was a lot of where I felt super comfortable. As I started to put more and more content in the market, 2 things happened. One, agencies and I'll just say this pretty plainly, we worked with 4 agencies that stole our intellectual property, tried to pass it off as their own. I was like, that is not a good business move for us. And the other side is we found higher paying clients that got better results by the nature of how their business was structured in the B2B SaaS space. So we, as a result, have been able to charge more and then hire better talent and then get better clients. So it's actually become a very virtuous cycle for us where I'm not just charging more because I want to have a greater gross profit, which is nice, help for growing the business. But I mean, I've been able to most of our team makes 6 figures and we're a marketing agency. That's not normal. And it's because of the caliber of clients that I have that I can charge the caliber of rates that I can, which then allows me to attract the caliber of talent that then attracts the caliber of clients. So it was just a very painful process of working with bad clients. And I don't say bad in a negative way, but just like not our best fit, giving money back often and just saying, I'm sorry, this was not Because the worst thing they can say about me is we worked with them, they gave us all our money back, and it wasn't a good fit. I'm really cognizant of reputation. So did that. And then where we found great fit, we just said, do you have any friends? And then we've done that for 2.5 years, and that has worked.
What was it like when you were going through that? Because to start out working with somebody, you have high hopes, your clients have high hopes. And that's rare to hear of someone, an agency that would give the money back because it wasn't the right fit, because you recognize at some point this isn't a good fit. So walk through some of those experiences. I've got to imagine as a business owner, when you're cutting a check back to your client, there's some pain that goes with that.
Yeah. And I want to go ahead and give the caveat of we did have a client this year where I didn't cut the check because there is a point where you shouldn't do that forever. When I was just starting out, I didn't have great processes. I didn't have a great team. I didn't have everything buttoned up and figured out. And there were quite a few things that I could own where I see where the engagement went wrong. And on the other side is I view myself now, because I've actually had really bad buying experiences as a business owner where I was portrayed one thing and then got another. And I don't think people do that intentionally, but it does happen. So I did not get my money back, even though I could point to where it was a whole thing. So I just, as a thought process around one, I plan on being in the market for a very long time. The $10,000 today is not worth the long-term hit that I could experience. It's a could. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is I have been very fortunate that my wife and I have kept our expenses extraordinarily low. So we are debt-free, including our home. It shifts the perspective a lot because I did work for a boss where his mortgage was $4,500 a month. And it was like, God, if we don't hit our sales goals, you'll lose your home. So there's an immense amount of pressure. Whereas here, I consistently am mainly focused on how do we do the best delivery, get the best results for the right clients. And then would I have rather kept the money? For sure. But again, realistically, I plan on being in the market for a very long time. And I know that in the first 2.5 years, and quite frankly, still today, have so much that we're figuring out that I would rather not make someone pay for me figuring it out because I don't think that's right to them. And I think that there is a long-term negative damage that will create to me. Yeah, I'd just rather leave as friends.
I love that approach. So as you've grown, because you started off a little over 4 years ago, and how many team members do you have now?
So I want to make sure I left Mojo 4 years ago. Scrappy's actually been around for like 2.5 years.
Okay. So even shorter. So 2.5 years of Scrappy ABM. You just mentioned that you guys are hitting 4 million in revenue.
So we've done 4.5 million in total top line sales. And we're about 2 million in ARR, which is annual recurring revenue.
2 million annual recurring. And I got to imagine that's moving up into the right. So how many people do you have on your team?
Currently 13. We just hired somebody last week. And then by the end of Q1, we should be up to about 17.
When you first started, was it just you or did you have other people working with you?
Yeah. The short story is it was really just me and then contractor. The longer story is there's been like 17 iterations of Scrappy ABM in 2.5 years. So the actual launch was like a broker model where no one made any money. And then I was like, this is very dumb. So I said to everybody that was like a member of Scrappy ABM, I was like, hey, none of us have made any money. I'm going to change the business model. Can we still be friends? And some of them said yes. Some of them said no. And that was unfortunate. But now I have employees. For quick context for everyone that's like, why not the broker model? You have no control over whether or not they take the deal. So like I would get a contract all the way ready to sign. And then the people would change their mind last minute. I was like, I literally cannot scale this business then. Because they were like, no, I'm good. I changed my mind. So anyway, fun times.
So as you've grown, because I think there are obviously unique challenges that you have encountered in scaling a business as quickly as you have. What are some of the lessons that you've learned in that process?
I think the lessons that I would come back to is things that we have done well. And there's a couple. One is protecting reputation above all else. I have walked away from so much money that would have been good in the short term, would have been massively detrimental. So that's the first thing. I allude to that, but like would have soured relationships that have created other referrals or other things. I didn't do that perfectly. Last year, we took on 4 clients that I didn't think they were a bad fit, but I didn't think they were a good fit. It was like this weird middle where I was like, I could go either way. 3 of them went very terribly. Only one went kind of okay. So I've now shifted our like client onboarding philosophy to if it's not an absolute yes, it's a no.
When you
And
had those clients coming on board, did you kind of know at a gut level that they weren't going to be a good fit?
2 of them, yes. 2 of them we discovered about 2 weeks in within process of the onboarding. And I had just hired a bunch of people. So I was like, well, we got to ride it out. I lost 6 months of my life to that because I overhired too quickly and then took 4 clients that were just took up all of my time. So I could not continue to actually grow and scale the business. So those are things that I think we did poorly. And then on top of that, this one that came back to bite me because we had contractors. And again, as a reference, there was a broker model at first, but then the business model changed. Contracts and like expectations were loose because we launched business in July. And then from July and August, we ended up doing $300,000 in sales. It was pretty good. And then from there, by the time we hit January, we were already doing about $50,000 a month. And it went so quickly that the contractors I had very unclear agreements. So some of them actually ended up putting their intellectual property that was actually like trademark stuffed into the business. So as a result, I went to go start to trademark things, found out things that we were using every day had already been trademarked by other people, and I actually had to buy people out of their IP. So it's just, you try to do that like somewhat quietly so that you don't like blow everything up for all your team of like, whoa, like who actually owns this? Really clear expectations on the front end of what are we actually building. And I say that I didn't know, and I figured it out along the way, but just like really clear contractor agreements of this is work for hire, because you may end up getting 2 years in and realizing, oh, I have to spend lots of money now to buy the thing that I already thought I bought, which is really hard.
That can be very uncomfortable, to say the least. So, one of the things that I know about you, just from our conversations, but also just watching you, obviously you're a numbers guy and you use that to drive your business. But for you, there's a bigger story, there's a bigger drive to what you do. And I think our listeners can pick up on the integrity, the value, how much you value relationships. And for you, valuing reputation isn't just about, hey, I want to have a good name. There's more underneath of that. So, as a business owner, what are some of those things that really serve as your North Star that guide what you do?
I'm very open about my faith publicly. So I am well aware that many of our clients know that I profess Christ as Lord and Savior. So first and foremost, I am painfully aware that for some of our clients, engaging with Scrappy ABM may be the closest they get to engaging with someone that is a Christian. So one, I want to make sure that's done well. Not perfectly, it never will be, but I want to make sure that's done fairly well. So that's the first thing. The second thing is our industry of marketing agencies as a whole is, someone actually said it to my face. I was like, yeah, you work in the manipulation industry.
Yeah. At
Cool.
least you knew where they stood, right?
Yeah, I was like, I hadn't thought about it that way, and it's not really how I view it. So the almost obnoxious over-indexing on honesty, transparency, and social proof is something that I think helps build trust in the market that then allows us to hopefully stand out as a business. And then the last thing is, truly when I look at the ABM industry and those that are in it, it is when done well, it is one of the most impactful growth levers for a business, for someone's career, and essentially very fundamentally changed my life. I would like to help other people do the same. So our actual real mission as a business is less of like ARR focused or anything around those lines. It's to equip 1 million marketers by January of 2035. Because if we can actually teach marketers how to do account-based marketing, they will grow in their career, earn the respect of their peers, and be able to provide for their families. I've just had so many friends that have gotten laid off in this space because people misunderstood what they were trying to accomplish. And as a result, if you don't understand it and you've got to make a cut somewhere, you're going to cut the thing you don't understand. It's those 3 things layered together that really help drive me a little bit more than I think I otherwise would be.
Yeah. You've got so much clarity around that. And how has that helped you in those seasons where you were having to push through and deal with the fires, and you've shared some of those. How has having that sense of vision and mission helped keep you moving forward?
Yeah. We talk about the 4.5 million in revenue, which sounds really nice and cool and fun, but very feasibly, just last year we did 2 million in revenue. Hard cost, I made about $450,000 in mistakes, like things that between overhiring and trademarks and bringing on bad clients that didn't end up paying us. Really hard stuff. So one, Mary Erin is my wife, who is incredible. She and I have often referenced that these are going to be the stories that we tell to help others along the way. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, very realistically, I've heard this phrasing recently, which is these are the reasons people quit. If you just get past these things, on the other side is actually a far less competitive space. So I have seen quite a few people that started their agencies or started their businesses around the same time or a little bit before that have since quit. And again, no shame in that. This is super hard. And I could not have done it had our family not been bought in, that we were going to live on like $50,000 a year pre-tax for 2.5 years. We say that as a passing comment. That is a fundamental change because I was making 140 as a salary, plus my wife was a nurse. So like we had a take home pay of like 220, 230, and
Yeah.
then dropped like overnight.
And that's a big shift.
But I give that context of, again, none of this for me has been about, this is going to sound dumb. Like, yes, it's about the money, but it's about the money for the sense of like providing for my family. And then the other shift that I had previously is I use the business's profits to fuel ministry. I recently, in the past year, joined a thing called C12, and I now actually view my business as a discipleship mechanism through which I can disciple my employees and ideally minister through the work that we do and how we do it to our clients. So when I look at all of that and you put all that together, I plan to be around for a long time. These things are extraordinarily hard. And because I can survive them, I will outlast everyone else. And there need to be people that know the gospel in this space so that this space can actually have more redemptive businesses and do right by people. So it's those things combined that help us keep going.
I love that. One of my guests a few episodes back is Jonathan Torres, who is based here in Memphis, and he is a C12 chair. And so he was a client previously when he was the CEO for a home and commercial security company. C12 is a great organization with a Christian perspective for business owners who want to see their businesses as more than just a business, something bigger, making an eternal impact. I love that. Mason, what if there was one thing that you could share with our listeners, so CEOs, business owners, what would you share with them?
The most impactful thing you can do for your business is clearly define who you do the best work for. If you do that, one, you will get greater results for them, which then means you can charge more money and have a more profitable business, which then also means you can pay better wages to attract better talent. And then word spreads quickly when you actually do work extraordinarily well. So you'll get more of these kinds of customers. So if you look at your current customer base and you don't like 80% of them, stop getting those customers. You have the ability to just stop selling them and then only sell the 20%. And it will slow growth for a season. It absolutely will. But you will then scale exponentially faster 18 months from now.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I forget the author's name now, but the book 10X is easier than 2X. And it's by getting very specific and aligning what you do best with the people who benefit the most from it, which allows you to focus in on your area of expertise. It's a bit like Jim Collins and the hedgehog concept. You align what you're best at, what drives your revenue with what you're passionate about. Sort of the component that's not there, but that you're bringing in is people who have the best fit for those services and what you bring to the table. Well, Mason, where can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you go to scrappyabm.com, we have a ton of resources. We didn't do a super deep dive on specifically account-based marketing, but if you want to do a super deep dive, once a month we host a thing called ABM in a day. So as a listener of this, if you go to scrappyabm.com/workshop and use the code 50OFF, you can join an 8-hour workshop with me. That's just $100. So that'll teach you how to build a full ABM program in a single day. That or scrappyabm.com/newsletter, which is where we send out all of our free stuff. So those are the main places to come and get in contact with me and Scrappy ABM.
I'm on that newsletter list, and you guys do. You and your team send out some fantastic resources.
Quick shout out to Evan Cox, who runs our newsletter. also mutual friend. But yeah, he does
That's
great
great.
work.
Yeah, I remember Evan from StoryBrand when I was back involved there. Mason, thank you so much for joining us. Loved hearing your story. And for our listeners, reach out to Mason. You caught the first part of this episode. You heard who his sweet spot is, the clients that they work with. So if you fit there, man, reach out. You won't be disappointed. And for folks that are just looking to get a starting point, you can head over to my company's website, wayfindmarketing.com. We have a free marketing assessment. It's a great place. If you're just trying to figure out the marketing landscape and where to get started and what to prioritize, it's a free 25-question assessment. It'll take you less than 10 minutes, and it gives you access to a free marketing playbook that's almost 40 pages of resources and tactics that you can implement. So again, Mason, thank you so much for joining us, and have a fantastic day, everybody. Mason said it best. If it's not an absolute yes, it's a no. He shared how protecting his reputation and the company's reputation and walking away from misaligned clients has become the foundation for sustainable growth, not just in revenue, but in team health and long-term momentum. And what really stood out the most was how clearly Mason has defined his ideal client, and then he's stuck to that. Now, that level of clarity didn't come easily, came through some costly mistakes, but it's the reason that his business is thriving today. All right, Annie Laurie, there was a lot of gold in that conversation. What hit home the most for you?
Honestly, his discipline in saying no. That's a hard muscle to build, especially when you're growing and every dollar counts. But Mason knew that misaligned clients are a drain on your energy. They're a drain on your team and your future. And saying no isn't weakness, it's actually wisdom.
Yeah, and that goes straight to the heart of the guide marketing framework that we've developed for our clients. It's about clarity. And when you're clear on your ideal client, as Mason showed us, you can stop chasing everything that moves. And Mason didn't just define his ICP, he built his entire system around it.
Right. And the virtuous cycle he described, better fit clients, higher rates, stronger delivery, stronger team. That doesn't happen by chance. It's the result of aligning strategy and service.
And I love how open he was about the struggles that he went through to get there. And let's be real, many CEOs who are listening to this are stuck in that messy middle, taking on work that maybe it fits and sometimes just to hit payroll. And that short-time survival mode, unfortunately, has a long-term cost.
Exactly. And if you're in that spot, take a breath and do the math. One wrong fit client can derail 6 months of growth. Protect your time, protect your team, and protect your reputation.
If you can't clearly name your ideal client's industry, company size, internal team structure, and even their tech stack, you're not marketing, you're guessing.
And as we often say, hope is not a strategy.
It never is. So if you're feeling stuck in that swirl of uncertainty, don't stay there. We would love to help you define your strategy, figure out your ICP, and build a marketing plan that actually works.
Here's your next step. Take a look at your current clients. Who energizes your team? Who drains them? Start there. And then ask, what do they have in common? That's the beginning of your ICP, and that clarity is the foundation for scaling with confidence.
And this episode is brought to you by Wayfind Marketing, where we help growth-minded CEOs and their marketing teams simplify their marketing, sharpen their message, and scale their business with less chaos and more results. You head over to wayfindmarketing.com. You can take the free marketing assessment and schedule a review call. Thanks for joining us on the Growth Minded Marketing Podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, subscribe, leave a review, and be sure to share it with a fellow CEO. I'm Steve Phipps.
And I'm Annie Laurie Walters. Until next time, keep growing on purpose.